From the Journeys of Belonging to Blackness Digital Media Project, I'm Yndia Wilmot, and you're listening to the podcast, Talking Journeys of Belonging to Blackness. Joining us today is chef and master chocolatier Michael Poole. Michael is the founder and CEO of Hot Chocolat, Artisan FireHouse Chocolates, which is based in Seattle, Washington. Michael is an award-winning chef with over 39 years of experience as a firehouse cook for the Seattle Fire Department, where he was lieutenant. He is a graduate of Le Cordon Bleu, Paris with Le Grand Diplôme in cuisine and pastry. Michael specializes in French and Caribbean cuisines, French pastries, and artisan chocolates. He has won awards, including the Master Award for Best Chocolatiers and Confectioners in America by the International Chocolate Salon, and has placed gold, silver, and bronze for the Luxury Chocolate Salon for his delicious chocolates and desserts. Chef Michael Poole has been featured on the nationally syndicated talk show Rachael Ray, as well as local newspapers and television stations on both coasts. Welcome, Michael.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
So, listing your culinary accolades, and I think it is worth mentioning too your business's tagline, quote, uncompromising goodness in every bite. Yeah. I love that, right? Yeah. Lets us know that you are in the serious business of food and that speaking to and connecting with people through your cuisine and especially through your handcrafted chocolates is paramount.
Yeah. So my journey began when I got in the fire department. That was back in 1980. So once I got in, I was stationed out in the north end of town, kind of a little slow, Sleepy Hollow fire station. I was 21. I wanted to be downtown where the action was. The captain at one of the downtown stations they called interviewed me, said I could have the job, but there was one stipulation. You have to be able to cook. So when he asked me, can you cook? I said, oh, yes, I can cook. So my journey began.
And could you at least boil water?
I could at least boil water. And actually, I did have experience in the kitchen when I was younger. And my mom was, going to school. I would hang out with my grandma. Back then, grandmas were always in the kitchen. I would do dishes for, some of the big events that we would have, the family functions and whatnot. So, I could get around the kitchen, but I still had a lot to learn at that time. So once I went downtown, I was at the Belltown station down on 4th and Battery downtown, started basically making meat and potato type meals. And then I really started getting into the cooking thing. So I'd go out and buy Bon Appetit and gourmet magazines and challenge myself with more sophisticated recipes. Did that for a while, of course, my skills and the taste of the food, it improved. And probably after about 5 years, I kind of found my passion in cooking. I had my full-time job, which I've always liked, but I had found that I had passion for cooking. So after about 5 years, I started a food concession specialized in Jamaican cuisine, go out and do the street fairs. So here in Seattle, we have the summer street fairs, which starts about May and goes through September with Bumper Shoot. That's the last festival of the year. And so I did a Jamaican jerk chicken, I had curry rice, black beans, the Jamaican patties, which are similar to empanadas. And I complemented it with the tropical fruit juice. And did that for a number of years. And, of course, I excelled at the cooking and that kind of thing.
Jamaicans out there in Seattle that says, okay, yeah, this is it.
We had a small Jamaican population, but I had a friend who was Jamaican. And that's how after a little, convincing, that's how I got into doing the Jamaican cuisine.
Okay.
Of course, I had to take a trip to Jamaica to find out what it was all about. Yeah.
Got to get that authentic feel.
Exactly. So I did that for a number of years. I even had a trailer once upon a time. Before the food trucks were popular, I had a trailer, but I sold it. If I'd have kept it another few years, I could have been in the mix with food trucks. But,
right.
So probably after about 20 years of cooking, decided I was going to go to culinary school, reading those Bon Appetit and gourmet magazines, in my mind, French chefs were some of the best in the world. And if I was going to go to culinary school, I wanted to go to Paris and go to Le Cordon Bleu. So I decided I was going to take one class. It's a 9-month course. And, of course, there's no way I could be gone for 9 months. I decided I was going to take one class in cuisine for cooking. And when I got there, I enjoyed it. It was a lot of work, but it was very exciting. Of course, you're in Paris. Paris is all about the food.
Right, of course.
And, yeah, so while I was there, I kept looking to see what the pastry people were doing. I had an interest in pastry, so then the next year I came back and I took the first class of pastry after 2 years. So I'd stay 3 months at a time, come back, work really hard, and go back. So then for the third year, I decided I was going to do both classes, and I was going to go all the way through until I graduated. Went for 2 more years, and at that time I took both the cuisine class and the pastry class at the same time. The third year I went, one of my fellow students who's French, she went straight through, graduated, and opened a chocolate factory just outside of Paris. And she called and, Michael, come work for me while you go to school and I'll pay you. And I was like, okay. So that's how I got into chocolate. So then I came back, started adding chocolate. I had kind of transitioned into catering at that time. So I would do courses and, like the French courses, at the end you have something sweet. Mm-hmm. And people were impressed with the chocolates, and they would always ask where could they get these and that kind of thing. And I'd tell them I just do it for catering. And they were kind of insistent and say, no, you have to sell these. And, one thing led to another. So then I kind of got into selling chocolates. So after 4 years of going, I finally graduated, received the Grand Diplôme for both cuisine and pastry, class valedictorian. That was kind of exciting for me. Kind of transitioned into the chocolate making. I started teaching classes, found that I liked teaching. So now I mostly just teach a hands-on chocolate making class, hands-on French macaroon making class, and I do chocolate shows.
Act 1, Call to Adventure. How did you become interested in wanting to be a firefighter and to work and then to climb the ranks of becoming even a lieutenant and to be in that space for almost 40 years?
My interest for the fire department, of course, it wasn't all at once. But when I was a junior in high school, I went to Tempe High, I grew up in Tempe, Arizona. During my junior year, had an opportunity to do some work. It was a summer job that they had. There was a program called CETA, and I don't think they have that program anymore, but it was to employ youths. And they would put you in professional settings. So that particular year, my job was I was going to work in the healthcare field. And what they do is you go and you work at a facility or a place for like about 2 weeks, and then they move you to a different location. So, they have nursing homes, and you can work in, hospitals and doctor's office, just to kind of get a feel for professional jobs. For me, the first week, I was assigned to a Phoenix fire station to ride with the paramedic. After that first day, they had a big fire. I got to ride with the medics and, the lights and sirens going, and
right.
We're coming up to this house and you could see the big column of smoke going and, flames shooting out the windows. And, then the firefighters, on the fire engine, they come and they take off the hose and they're squirting water on it. And then the guys on the ladder truck, they're grabbing their ladders and putting it on the roof. And it was just so exciting, and I was in high school. And it's like, after that, that's what I want to do. I want to be a firefighter when I grow up. And so that's what really got my interest, of course, working the 24-hour shift and the camaraderie that they had. They worked together, they ate together. Once I graduated from high school, then I started pursuing that. Happened to move to Seattle. My uncle was living here and he invited me to come up here for a while. And then when I came to Seattle, I put in for the Seattle Fire Department. And, it actually took me 2 years to get hired. Once I did get hired, I loved the job. And probably after about 15 years of just being a firefighter, working at different places, I just felt it was time to get promoted. So at that time, took 2 years off. I did my studying. I got promoted, and then
Wow.
that's another challenge, being to be in charge of people that you used to work with.
Yeah,
So,
no, because it's different. And then and you
exactly.
started very young, and then all of a sudden the dynamics have changed and the power
Yeah,
differentials are there.
right.
What was it like being an African descended lieutenant in a fire department where there are, as you were saying, it's close knit, there's a brotherhood, but that's a very different kind of culture than
Yeah.
most people are aware of.
It's a different culture, but at that time, Seattle was trying to lead the way for hiring minorities, hiring women. At that time when I got in, when the getting was good, and I got my job, loved it.
And it seems like to me that experience that you had when you were in high school triggered some sort of passion for you that dealt with something that was hot, that was fiery.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you also have this other equally interesting kind of passion of yours that involves fire, cooking.
Yes.
Right? And so you'd mentioned growing up and, matriarch in the kitchen cooking.
Right.
And then all the younger people are like, all right, I need for you to play like dishwasher and sous chef. But
exactly. Yes.
how did that then translate? Because you have so many people who are like, I love grandmama's cooking, but I'll just eat it. I'm not going to be on the side of preparing it.
It's interesting because, I don't know, it's like my grandmother and I, we had this cooking thing going, and it started when I was a kid. And, even though I was in the kitchen, I'd ask her questions and, she would let me stir the pot or whatever and, doing the little things. And we've always had this special cooking bond between us. And, she was a real good cook. When she was younger, she lived in Texas. She was from Houston. Mm-hmm. And so she, said, early on that she would cook for people, in the big houses and all that kind of stuff. And, so we would talk about all that stuff in the kitchen, and all the stories were always interesting. And, of course, the food was always good.
What was your fond memory of you cooking with your grandmother? Was there like a particular dish that you enjoyed cooking with her? Was that your favorite? Was it her favorite?
Well, early on, she had, she would do dishes that I really liked. I really, the dishes that really stand out are, I always liked the fried fish, chicken, and most everything that she would do. But after I got into the fire department and I really got into cooking, then I would cook for her. Oh, nice. And I would take great pleasure, and there would be a lot of pride in creating a new meal for her, because additionally, this is what she likes, and, right. And I'll come out with all this chicken a la something, and she said, I don't know about that. Time she was impressed. But early on, I think one of the main dishes I did a seafood jambalaya. And that was kind of, like a family dish, so every time I would make jambalaya, the family, they would look forward to that. I'd always do a peach cobbler. Those are kind of the early on dishes that I would do. Those are the ones that really people would want me to make. And then as I got, my skills got better and my repertoire got bigger, then I would go and I'd start making a lot of other dishes. There was a time that it was probably about 5 or 6 years, I would cook for the clothing stores. Here in Seattle, we had Eddie Bauer, we have Nordstrom, and it used to be the Bon Marché, which is now Macy's. So when they would go out for their fashion photo shoots, and I would come and I would cook lunches for them, more of the stuff that I learned, in looking at those magazines, more exotic foods. So then when I would cook for my grandma, I was like, oh, grandma, I'm going to try out this new recipe, and it usually came out really good. What
was the pivotal moment you would say that confirmed to you that you're like, you know what, I need to continue on with my culinary studies, because presumably you are continuing in tandem, climbing up the rank within the fire department system.
Right. Well, kind of the pivotal moment when I really kind of took things to the next level was so early in my career, the fire department, they always had an annual cooking competition. It was a firefighter seafood competition, and it would be for the best seafood entree, and the best seafood soup. So for the first 7 years, I would never win. It was like I thought my food was a lot better than that. So
because grandma told you, right? Grandma said, yes,
right.
Michael, you did this. And then you're like, how come people aren't eating it?
So the particular year, I decided that I was going to win. So I did a risotto, a shrimp risotto with shrimp sauce. I won the best seafood entree, the best seafood soup. I ended up winning the next 3 years, the grand prize for the competition. So then after that, they made me a judge. They didn't want me entering anymore. And that's when
that's funny.
I knew.
They're like, Michael, give other people a chance.
Well, yeah, they didn't want to compete against.
That's funny. And so by you becoming a judge and you winning a lot, you were like, I can professionalize this in a way that you may not have considered previously.
Yeah. And then I started, getting into other, firefighter competitions. And I guess the most significant one was when I won the firefighter chili competition.
All right.
Because chili, that's serious business, right?
That's right.
I have to just say this, ever since I've gone to school, I was going for 4 years after that. I enjoyed going to Paris. I have friends, so I go every year now, sometimes twice a year. But anyway, this particular year I was in Paris and I got some email from a public information officer from the Seattle Fire Department, and they asked if I could be in this chili competition. And, so I responded, it's like, well, chili's serious business and I really don't make chili. So anyway, when I got back and I was at the station, they said, we really want you to represent the Seattle Fire Department in this competition. So it's like, well, okay. So I started working on some recipes and I had one that I thought was okay. And turned out my grandma just happened to be in town. So like, grandma, do you make much chili? Do you cook chili? So I'm in this competition and I need to win.
Right.
And she said, honey, I'm from Texas. And I'm like, okay, what am I thinking? Chili. So anyway, so she was
your secret ingredient. That's what's up.
Exactly. So it was my aunts. They were there too. So after they tasted the chili, they started throwing out all these ingredients. Oh, you need some cumin in there. You got to burn that cumin with the oregano and blah blah blah. And so then before they left, I did the chili again using their suggestion. This is good. We think it's blue ribbon.
Oh, wow.
Blue ribbon. I was like, okay. So anyway, so then I won the local competition, so it was different cities, firefighters from different cities competing, and winning that puts you in the running for the national competition in New York, the Fire Museum. I got my free trip to New York for the competition, and then I won that.
Wow!
So that was pretty exciting.
Act 2: The Road. You talked about studying, going back and forth to Paris. And so what was that experience like? I mean, I think about, there was this movie, Cooking with Julia Child.
Yes.
Where, and I grew up watching Julia Child on television, watching that movie and the dramatizations of what her experience was like at a particular time, and being a woman and being American, I'm sure it was interesting to see that dramatization. Right. But for you, what was it like going there as a Black man, as an American, as a person who may not have the same sort of privilege? Because I'm assuming people who go off to the Cordon Bleu have a particular privilege about, well, this is what I want. I've been studying this. This is my expertise, and I'm going to refine it. And you're going to this excellent institution. So share with our audience, like, what that was like.
So my experience when I first got there, you're in Paris, so it's exciting. At that time, it was no cakewalk going to school, especially the Cordon Bleu, because it's true. The French chefs, they yell. They have no problem yelling. So
like Gordon Ramsay to most folks here. When we see Gordon Ramsay on TV.
Yeah. I have a story about Gordon Ramsay, and I'll get to that later. But anyway, The French expectation is everything has to be excellent. There's no room for mediocrity. We would go in for a demo, and it would be about 3 hours or so. And then we'd go and cook, and we would cook what the chef just demonstrated. So on my first day, I'm in there cooking, and everybody has to plate the dish that they made. And, and I think it was some meat dish. And, I'm looking at it, and it's a little bit overcooked, and I know it is. But the chef, he goes around and, he has his clipboard and he walks around tasting everybody's dish and, letting them know how they did. He's yelling and cursing and all this stuff at people. And it's like, oh, my goodness. I wonder what's going to happen when he gets to me. So anyway, he gets to me, and with the French dishes, you make a sauce with everything. So then, he gets to me and it's like zero for the for the day. He said my sauce was too greasy, my meat was overcooked. You get a 0 for the day. And, that's just kind of started things off, so, after that, serious business. So,
because I'm sure after a while you start to not only develop the expertise and the technique, but then also learn, all right, what's really expected of us, of the professors that are there. You can say, okay, so they love this particular sauce. So if I could kind of tweak it this way, they like burgundy, they love this, they love this pairing. Let me just kind of do this in a particular way. But it seems like you were able to build community with your fellow classmates. And one of whom you had mentioned that she introduced you to chocolates.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So, how did you then decide that this was a pathway for you? I know you had talked about she gave you an opportunity, but, sometimes we have opportunities and we say that was a great opportunity. I learned, I'm now going to move forward in this direction. What goaded you to say, there's something about chocolate making and becoming a chocolatier that really speaks to my specific passion around culinary arts?
To be honest, I didn't have this big, huge interest in chocolate. The fact that she called me and asked me to work for her and said she'd pay me, that was good enough for me. But once I got there and I started making it, and it was interesting because, she was very passionate about her chocolates. And, sometimes, big old firefighter, rolling my eyes. But anyway, it's really funny because, the people that you learn from, you always take something away from them. When you learn from them, they mentor you. That was one of the things that I started taking from her was the passion. So once I got back, I was, most of my clients at the time, they would want to know what I learned in France, what new dishes I had and that kind of thing. So when I started doing French meals and doing courses and having the chocolates at the end, and people really liked the chocolates, it was like another door was open, and the chocolates a little bit more and a little bit more. And, at some point I started becoming passionate about making chocolates. And at that time, it was a good transition out of catering because, catering's a grind. Doing street fairs is a grind. I guess as you age, you like to work smarter and not harder. So it was kind of an easy transition out of catering so much into chocolate making.
Fortuitous of you too to even be thinking on the American side once you return to get into chocolates, because if, I'd have to probably do the numbers again, but I remember reading not too long ago that, annual sales of chocolates in the US are like upwards of like 100 million.
Oh, yeah.
Chocolates are big, and of course it jumps for Valentine's especially, and, different times of the year, but we consume a lot of chocolates on this side.
Yes, we do.
And for you to then say, oh, there's some, people enjoy my cuisine, like the main courses. However, when they get to the dessert part.
It's interesting that you say that because, early on when I would cook, people would always say, oh, your food is good. But I found when they made those noises, that's when I knew it was good. And that is what, would turn me on. They start making them noises, you put your foot in that.
That's right. Well, hopefully not too loudly. Sidebar note, I just wanted to share this. My wedding anniversary, 1 year wedding anniversary with my husband, and we had gone to this beautiful bed and breakfast way up in Maine. I think the chef that was part of the B&B, he was also trained from the Cordon Bleu as well. And he was doing some of the similar things, but at the bed and breakfast that he and his partner owned. Right. And there was a gentleman at the next table. Now, our food was delicious, right?
Yes.
It was really good. This grown man, I mean, he must have been like 65 plus.
Yeah.
And we're in a small dining area, so it's pretty intimate, but there are probably at least maybe 8 tables in there, right? Mm-hmm. This man is loudly groaning. Then he throws down his napkin and he's like still groaning. I mean, to the point that most of us stopped eating because it was so distracting.
That's funny.
And then he's speaking loudly, and the chef came out, but you could just tell that like you, the chef was just like, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
The rest of us were a little bit uncomfortable, but we got it. And so I can imagine how affirming that is, where, you can say to someone, oh, this was delicious. And it's like, okay, that's great. But when you actually get to see them.
Yeah.
And maybe not all the time hear them, but see them. And it's just, they close their eyes. Mm-hmm. I guess that's perhaps where you get your business tagline, right? Like that uncompromising goodness in every bite, because you want to see that sort of impact or effect that you were uncompromising, and you want people to be able to receive that. Would you say?
Yeah, exactly.
I have another question for you, and I'm trying to figure out, where does this Gordon Ramsay story come in? But I'm wondering if you can share too, what are some of the lessons you've learned along the way? Like, were there particular failures that you experienced? And, and how did you turn things around for you to be able to press forward?
Well,
I'm wondering if Gordon Ramsay had anything to do with that, but just saying.
He wasn't till later on. But we'll get to Gordon Ramsay. I think, anytime that you go into business, especially food business, food business is very competitive, because everybody that cooks, and especially if they're going to sell food, thinks theirs is the best. Mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot of variables. So if you have a restaurant, if you've been in the business for a long time, people are familiar with you, those kind of things. So first got into doing the street fairs, doing the festivals. I had my little food booth, getting ready to do my Jamaican cuisine, had my barbecue grills and all that stuff, and put up my little tiny booth. The guy next to me, he sold barbecue, and he had, so this is out in Tacoma. He had a little store there, and very popular. It was like, the place to go, and I'm like next to him. So, Of course, he had the long lines. His line was so long, it's in front of my booth, and people were at my booth, and they would buy juices. So while they're waiting to get his barbecue, there's a lot of failures, for whatever reason. But bottom line is, you have to believe in yourself, have a strong will, and you never give up.
Even in that example, that wasn't a failure for you in a sense that you did something. It was a failure in terms of the circumstance.
Well, the circumstances, but, at the end of the day, when you don't sell anything, or you sell very little, you feel like it's a failure, and just, you just have to up your game and stick with it.
How do you sort of rely on your skills of being resilient to then bounce back? Are you just like, all right, well, I look at the Farmer's Almanac now. Do I kind of figure out what's the booth charting plan if I'm competing, and not to be next to this person who's doing barbecue or anything like that? I mean, are there things that you've developed that's part of your arsenal that you sort of carry with you?
Well, yeah. I find, when I was at the street fairs, one thing was talking to people into trying some of your food. So, so that was one thing, people come up, talk about jerk chicken and all that kind of stuff, because jerk chicken's serious business too, right? And, my heritage isn't from Jamaica, but now the Jamaicans, they come and get my line, and they would talk to me and tell me how they know jerk chicken, and so I was confident to say that I've always kind of had this gift. I've always been blessed with the ability to cook and create some food, and I've been able to do it since I was small, but I needed something to bring it out. And so, when I was doing the street fairs, I could put my foot in it. They would leave happy. It was like, okay, this is good. As time went on, I'd do little things like I'd throw a little bit of the marinade on the grill, and the aroma goes, if there's a big crowd of people and then, their heads turn and then I can get them to come in. And probably after about 5-6 years, I was like up in the top 5 in sales, for the street
Wow.
fairs.
And that's amazing, right? Because there's a performance element, not just the product, but the performance, the strategy and the technique to shine. So how did that translate to being on like Rachael Ray's show or, on these national TV, the local television?
Well, you have to win a competition. And then when you win the competition. So for Rachael Ray, I went to New York and I won the National Firefighter Chili Championship. Her people contacted me and asked me, Rachael saw that, I'm the firefighter chili champ and she wants to invite me to New York. Question was, when do we leave?
Right.
You have to win a competition. But then once you win the competition, then the recipe you have, it's up for grabs,
Right.
So I've had people have come up to me and, sometimes I'm not quite sure how I'm supposed to feel about this. And they'll say, oh, man, I found your recipe online and I won a competition with it. I was like, how am I supposed to feel about that? Am I supposed to be happy that they used my recipe and they won? Or am I supposed to be mad?
Or even flattered, like, wow, you liked it so much and it was replicable. So you've been on television, you've won awards, you've won competitions, you've been all over the place. And so now you're traveling back and forth, back to Paris, back to other places abroad as well. I'm sure the learning never stopped, always refining the technique and the skills, and then now teaching, right?
Yeah.
That's something very different type of performance.
Yeah, well, it is. Because when you teach, as you well know, you have to be very knowledgeable because people will ask you questions. When I first started teaching the chocolate making, it was, it was just kind of something I stumbled upon. I have a friend, Claiborne. He said that him and his buddies, they get together once a year and they wanted to learn how to make chocolates for Valentine's so they could give their Valentines the chocolates that they made. I gave him a little bit of pushback, so, well, I've never taught before, so I don't, I've never taught chocolate making, I should say, because I did teach cooking classes there for a while. He kept on and I put together a class and, they made the chocolates and, we even did more complex than what it is now. But, we did chocolate bars and, I show them how to write on the chocolate bars so they can write their name or I love you or whatever they wanted to do.
That's cute.
And then on Valentine's, they give them the chocolates. And then with social media, then the girls, they contacted me and wanted to take the class. And then the other people wanted to take the class. And it just kind of created a life of its own. And then once I really kind of got into the teaching thing, I realized how knowledgeable I was in it and how I liked it. I enjoyed teaching. I like to teach people, how to do things, how to, start with, no experience in chocolate making. And then by the time the class is over, you've learned how to temper chocolate, which is the most important part of chocolate making. We make a filling and you take home what you make. It started feeling good. So now I enjoy teaching. So I added on the macaroon making class and then, it's very trendy now, very popular. Yeah. So between the two classes, I'm happy and I'm comfortable and I'm doing what I like to do.
Act 3, where we land. In this present time, what are you most excited about, both personally and professionally?
Personally, I'm at a good place in life. I just retired from the fire department after 39 years. Being in the fire department, has really given me a lot of structure to my life, and it's only been about 6 weeks since I've been retired. And so it's taken a little getting used to. I've kind of found my way back to the kitchen. I take my classes, but it's not like I do anything else. I don't go in there and make chocolates. I used to go in and make chocolates, and that kind of thing. But having 2 jobs and, working like a madman, it just kind of gets to be too much. So at this time, being retired, I'm at a good place. And then with my skills, so, just the other day, like I had mentioned earlier, that I started making some caramels. And then one of the things that came back to me is how
that spoke to my heart. The caramels, I'm like, yes.
And I wanted to make these line of caramels, fruit flavored caramels. So, so then I started off with coffee caramel because entered a competition for the Northwest Chocolate Festival. I decided that I was going to try the fruit flavored. And, it's just really interesting, so once I get in there and, start tinkering around and, playing around with some flavors and they start to come out. And, now I'm able to go in the kitchen and get excited and just kind of do what I do. And, there's not a lot of pressure. It's not like I have any time limitations. Before I could go and spend a few hours, but, working the two jobs, it's not like I don't have the freedom that I have now.
So you're excited now to get back into the kitchen?
I am, because creating these new flavors, the fruit flavors that I've done are the orange zest caramel. I did a banana caramel, and I did a raspberry caramel.
Yes.
And, they're all really good. I'm like, wow. So it makes me feel good because that's what I like.
And I will say this, for you being a firefighter for so long, almost 40 years, presumably you were in shape. So now that you are retired, I could always tell chefs that enjoy their food because you can tell they eat their food.
Right.
Just be careful with yourself.
Well, no, I understand. That's always the challenge, in retiring and looking for structure, to put structure back in my life, because when you retire, it's like, what am I going to do? I have things to do. But so the one thing that I found is if I go to the gym, at least 3 times a week, that will keep me in shape and been able to do it, so just kind of stick with it.
Why don't you also share with the audience some other things that you're working on and where they can check out your work and the projects and different things that you're doing?
Well, one of the things that I'm working on for the future is I've been interested for a while in doing chocolate tours. So I'm planning to facilitate a chocolate tour to Paris, and it was next year, going to Paris, staying for about a week, and go see some, chocolate shop. The biggest thing is to go to Salon du Chocolat, which is the world's largest chocolate show. So I travel, especially to Paris. I've probably been going every year for the last 20 years or so. And, so I want to start off with, the chocolate tour to Paris, and then add other tours, to different places in the world with my chocolate classes. And then I do a lot of team building. Seattle's kind of one of those places now. There's a lot of new startup companies. They all do team building or team morale events, as they call it. So with that keeps me busy.
Well, if I can, I would love, and this is just me speaking selfishly, I would love if you would consider a future project around developing a cookbook.
I'm working on a book. I had worked on, more of a cookbook. I probably did that about 10 years ago, but I never really had it published. That I would like to do now is more a chocolate book. So yes, so that is one thing that will be coming sometime in the near future.
Oh, goody. So that should be called The Road Ahead,
The Road Ahead, that's right.
Road Ahead. Last thing, if you could, can you share a couple of audience takeaways may inspire them on their own journeys of belonging to Blackness?
Never lose sight of your dream and who you are. And, we always have failures or, we get discouraged, but, got to keep your head up and keep on pushing. And, you never know what door is going to open. And when you go through that door, you may find a new passion or something that, helps you out along the way.
And I'm not letting you off the hook. So what's the Gordon Ramsay?
So
sorry, I've been on the edge of my seat, and you know what? Honestly, I hope it's real good because.
All right. Well, Gordon Ramsay. So this is before Hell's Kitchen. So people didn't know really know who Gordon Ramsay was. So like I said, when I was going to school, I would go take a class once a year. So the third year that I went, I met this guy. He was from Miami. And we just hit it off, so we would hang out in Paris. We had all our classes together. And so then I came back after that third year, and he went straight through and he finished. So then he sent me email and says, hey, I graduated. I'm going to move to London. I'm going to work at this restaurant, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to work for this chef named Ramsay. So then, that was, I didn't know who he was. So, I had to Google him and find out who this chef Ramsay was. So then, and it took me about a week before I actually got back to him, maybe even a couple of weeks. I emailed him back and said, oh man, I hear Ramsay, is really good, top chef, and I'm jealous. And then he emailed me back and he says, I hate it. I get yelled at all day long. I work 16 hours a day. I come home, my legs are swollen. I hate it. And so then of course after Hell's Kitchen came out, and you see Chef Ramsay yelling at everybody, then I could really understand.
You're like, I got it. I got it. So that's interesting as a sidebar, because to me, I get that quote unquote reality TV.
Yeah.
A lot of it is like a lot of theatrics for ratings, but that's interesting where it's like, that's kind of sometimes not just the training that it seems like you all receive, that it's that sort of environment, but what we might see, maybe at least 75% of it is real. And maybe
and I can say after I graduated, so I stayed my 3 months and I went to school the last year, and then I stayed another 3 months. I had to take partial leave of absence, but I went and I did my training. They call it stage. So I worked at a 2 Michelin star restaurant. It was off the Champs-Élysées, Restaurant Schuberta. It's like the first week, nobody will talk to you. And then after you make it the first week, then everybody will talk to you, and they wanted to talk to you in English. But anyway, we would in the morning go do our prep. Then everybody goes and has lunch. We eat together. So on one side sits the wait staff, the other side would sit the chefs, and they wouldn't talk to each other. So then after lunch, we put our toques on, and then the cooking started. And when the cooking started, the yelling would start, and it would not stop until cooking was done. And then, then the chef, he's a nice guy and he'll talk to you and all that. But, during that service time, it was all business.
Well, I think that's a nice description too, because then if we have listeners who are interested in pursuing a profession within culinary art or the culinary field, whether they are, interested in becoming also a professional chef, to kind of understand that, that there's certain cultural things that are happening, but it seems like, hey, keep your head on your shoulder, be resilient, maybe even have a thick skin. But it seems like if you're able to connect your passion to your profession, it seems like it's a win all around, and you're a testament to that.
If you're passionate about something, then you don't mind working hard. If you have to have thick skin, then it's not so bad because you're passionate, especially while you're learning. After you get the knowledge, then you can kind of go do your own thing.
Well, thank you, Chef Michael Poole, for joining us and sharing your journey of belonging to Blackness.
Well, thank you so much.
There you have it. The journey isn't over, but this episode is. Until next time, peace.